Reform in Bahrain, next on International Focus.
The Institute of World Affairs at UWM and Milwaukee Public Television present International Focus, a global magazine linking Wisconsin and the world.
Welcome to International Focus. I'm Doug Savage, Assistant Director of the Institute of World Affairs at UWM. With voting rights for women, an elected lower house of parliament, and a Jewish ambassador to the United States, some observers point to the Kingdom of Bahrain as a model of pluralism and political reform in the Arab world. Substantial challenges remain, but the Bahraini government continues to press ahead with reforms, including a decision earlier this month to become the first Gulf Arab nation to end the practice of labor sponsorship, which binds foreign workers to their employers. Here, with a perspective on what the Heritage Foundation recently called one of the Gulf's most advanced economies and most progressive political systems, we're pleased to be joined by Houda Ezra Nonoo, Bahrain's ambassador to the U.S. Prior to her appointment in 2008, she served in her nation's National Assembly. She's also held senior positions in the corporate world and is one of the founding members of Bahrain Human Rights Watch Society. Ambassador Nunu, welcome to International Focus.
Thank you, Doug.
Well, I think for our viewers, unfortunately, the American media tend to focus on parts of the Arab world that are in a bit more turmoil than I think your nation is. So I think a lot of our viewers might not be real familiar with the nation of Bahrain. So could you maybe just give us a little background about sort of the basics?
Sure. Bahrain is a very small country. It's got a population of 1 million people with 300 square miles. Bahrain's GDP is $26 billion, and it's a trading culture dating back to ancient times. Bahrain's history with the Americans goes back way before the Fifth Fleet. The Fifth Fleet is actually based in Bahrain, but our relationship goes way back. It's a people-to-people relationship, which was started in the 1880s when the American missionaries came out to Bahrain, and they founded a clinic out in Bahrain. And that's how our friendship actually started.
Okay, and it's an island nation?
It's an island nation. It's an archipelago of 33 islands. And some of the islands you cannot see when it's high tide. The largest island is Bahrain itself, and it's linked to the second largest island, which houses the airport, which is Muharraq Island. And it's got islands all around as well.
And you're just off the coast of Saudi Arabia?
We're just off the coast of Saudi Arabia. We're linked to Saudi Arabia by a bridge, which is about 25 kilometers. We're building a bridge to Qatar, which will be the longest bridge in the world. It's going to be 40 kilometers. Dubai is just 50 minutes away from us. Logistically speaking, we're in a great geographical positioning. You can drive to Saudi, as I've already said, hopefully in the future to Qatar as well. But through Saudi, you can go to Kuwait, to Dubai. The flights, we have Gulf Air, which has the most flights from the Gulf to anywhere in the world are in the region. And
talk a little bit about the economy and what do people do there?
Okay, Bahrain was the first to find oil in 1932, and we were the first to realize that we have depleting reserves. So we were diversifying as far back as the 1970s. In the 1970s, we became one of the major financial hubs in the Gulf. We have over 440 banks in Bahrain. We also do downstream petroleum processing and refining. We're into pharmaceuticals, aluminum smelting, fruit processing. One of the largest U.S. companies just recently opened in Bahrain, and that was a Kraft fruit processing plant, and they opened about a year ago.
Okay, and I think for people that know the region, increasingly when Bahrain is mentioned, they think of financial services. Has that really been a focus?
It has been a focus, definitely, yes. We're the oldest financial region in the Gulf, and it's dating back to over nearly 40 years now.
So, you know, I mentioned in the introduction this characterization as one of the most progressive political environments. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the recent history and when the current ruler assumed power?
Okay. Bahrain was a colony of the British Empire until 1971, so we actually got our independence in 1971. And the present king's family were the rulers. The present king took over power in 1999, And since he's been in power, there's been a lot of reforms in Bahrain. His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa believes that the people of Bahrain are the main, have to be the main focus of the country, because it's the people that actually move the country. So he's very highly focused on education, on educating the people of Bahrain, on he also wants to increase the economy of Bahrain, basically by bringing in different companies, different people into Bahrain. Bahrain's always been open. It's always been welcoming people, and this is our main focus in Bahrain, is to welcome more people and to invite people into Bahrain and see what Bahrain's all about.
So, I think in this country, people that are thinking about sort of the vibrant business environment in the Gulf very often think of Dubai first. And how does the environment compare?
Bahrain has been growing steadily over the last 30 years. It hasn't just started growing in the last few years. So it's very important that we've been building the regulations in the banks. We've building them as we go along. We haven't just come out of nowhere. Bahrain, when you go into Bahrain, you tend to meet Bahrainis. Our population is 1 million, but the majority are Bahrainis. So when you go in, you interact with the Bahraini, which I think is very important in any country, that you actually interact with locals. The Bahrainis are actually in the workforce. You see them everywhere. From the time you get out of the airport to the time you go to the hotel, in a taxi, they are everywhere. They are forced to be reckoned with, the Bahrainis. So I think that's very, very important. When somebody wants to come invest in a country, they need to see who the people are there. We have the Economic Development Board in Bahrain, which is focusing on bringing investors into Bahrain. And we also have a labor fund, which basically trains Bahrainis to the jobs that investors want to start up in Bahrain. So say, for instance, craft, when they came into Bahrain and they said they wanted a certain particular skill, the Bahrainis are being trained to that skill.
And that is somewhat unusual in the region, to have sort of nationals of the country actually make up that much of the workforce.
Yes. Yes, it's a very strong workforce, and Bahrainis have always had the work ethics. Bahraini women have always worked, and even as far back as the 1930s, Bahrain had the first school for girls in 1928 in the Gulf. The first school for boys was in 1919. So it's a very progressive. We've always been progressive, and we've always been forward-thinking.
So. I think that's reflected within the region. Bahrain's often a destination for people, even if it's as simple as spending a weekend in the country. And what kinds of social differences might you see between, say, Bahrain and your large neighbor just on the other side of the causeway?
Okay, Bahrain is an open society. It's a very tolerant society. In Bahrain, you'd find Bahrainis who are Christians, Bahrainis who are Jews, Bahrainis who are Hindus, Baha'is. So we have, and of course Muslims. We have the different religions within a very small country, and it just goes to show how open and tolerant Bahrain is as a country. For visitors, we have everything available there. We have water parks for the kids. We have the Formula One racing, the track, which has just recently opened, and we had our 5th race about 3 weeks ago, and that is always an amazing event, because we get people from all around the world coming in to watch the race. And apart from that, we have the people on TV as well that are watching us. Bahrain has cinemas, which is not found in some of our neighboring countries. We have shopping malls, and one particular area has about 5 shopping malls right now. So it's very diversified. You can find anything you want out there. So
you mentioned a bit earlier the Fifth Fleet. What is the military relationship between the two countries?
The Fifth Fleet was, it dates back 60 years ago, during the Second World War. So the base has been there since 1948, and it's recently been renamed as the U.S. Bahrain Fifth Fleet. Well, not recently, but some time ago. The relationship is very strong. We also have the base also has a school that's part of it, which is part of the Department of Defense, and that's the Bahrain School. Not a lot of people are aware of the fact that the school actually exists in Bahrain, and it's a school that has about 50 different nationalities. So it's a very interesting place to go to. The base Bahrain basically has cooperated with the U.S. military in different, can't think of the word. There was different exercises in the Gulf, and the latest exercise that we're going to be with the military is basically for the piracy in the Somali area. Bahrain is actually going to be participating in the exercises for that as well.
Well, and in some parts of the region, the presence of a large U.S. military facility has been problematic. I mean, what is your sense of what the average Bahraini thinks of having the base there?
The average Bahraini is extremely happy to have the base there. It's very important for our country. We are a very small island, and across, let's say, the pond, we have some aggressive neighbors. Iran has made a lot of claims on Bahrain, the most recent one being in February, where they said Bahrain was the 14th province of Iran. It's very similar to when Iraq said Iraq is the 19th province of Iraq. Kuwait is the 19th province of Iraq. Having the base there is security for Bahrain, is a security for the region. So the average Bahraini does understand that.
And the economic relationship was strengthened a few years ago with the signing of a free trade agreement.
It was, yes. It was in the FTA was actually signed in 2006, and that was done by my predecessor, Dr. Nasser al-Baluchi, and he had a lot of help from Congressman Paul Ryan. It was a very important event in Bahrain's history, and it was another event that strengthened our relationship between the United States and Bahrain. Bahrain was the first Gulf country to sign the FTA, and since the signing of the FTA, the exports and imports between the United States and Bahrain has improved a great deal.
And what is the benefit to Bahrain? And typically, oftentimes Americans think of free trade arrangements as something that will help American products enter a market. What is the advantage to the Bahrainis?
Well, the advantage to the Bahrainis is the Bahraini products are entering the American market. So we have manufacturing outlets in Bahrain who are manufacturing items and sending it out to the United States. And I've been to a few places where I've seen labels made in Bahrain. So it's very nice when you see things like that. And it's with the FTA that has increased over the years. The Bahrainis, I think, the Bahrainis are aware of what the advantage is, but we need to create a more of an awareness program, because not everyone knows what the FTA can give them. So it needs to be done on both sides to increase awareness of the FTA. So we're still pretty young. It's only 3 years, so it's. But I think we've done pretty well in the first few years of the FTA.
So what kinds of things might we look for in this country that have a Bahraini label?
There are some clothing items, trousers, T-shirts, shirts. What else? Aluminum, but you wouldn't really see that labeled. But some of the aluminum stuff that's being used here would have come from Bahrain, originated from Bahrain. So there's quite a few things that you would see here.
So, did the commercial environment have to change substantially for the free trade agreement to be enacted? So what kinds of things were involved in those negotiations? One
of the major things was the labor market. And just a couple of weeks ago, that was actually, the sponsorship was actually removed. So we are getting there slowly. We had to be basically a freer labor, because what happens, and it's not just Bahrain, it's the whole of the region, it's a sponsorship. People come in with a contract, and once that contract is finished, then they leave the country. It's not migrant workers as such as more contract workers, because they're only there for the duration of their contract, and the contract can be extended to as an agreement between both the employer and the employee. But what used to happen was the employer had every right over the employee. The employee could not move around. There was not a free market where he could move around to another job, to a better job or better situation or whatever. So this has actually come into effect just very recently, and that was one of the things that the FTA had actually put down for us, that we had to work with our labor system.
Well, and as you say, that is really unique in the region right now, that the sponsorship agreements have now been set aside.
Again, we're the first in the region to have done this.
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about Bahrain's relationships both within the region and wider throughout the Arab and Muslim worlds. But we're going to take a break right now. To our viewers, we'll be right back on International Focus.
The Institute of World Affairs presents our community with a range of public programs relating to global issues, U.S. foreign policy, and the world economy. For more information about the Institute of World Affairs, call 414-229-3220 or visit our website at www.iwa.uwm.edu.
Welcome back to International Focus. We're talking with Bahraini Ambassador Houda Ezra Nonoo. Well, when we left, we were talking a little bit about the U.S.-Bahraini relationship, and now I'd like to turn, if we could, to sort of Bahrain's relationship within, first of all, the Gulf Cooperation Council. If you could maybe remind our readers who are, our viewers, who are members of the GCC?
Okay. The Gulf Cooperation Council was actually founded in 1981, and it consists of the 6 Gulf states, which includes Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, and of course Bahrain. We have excellent relations with all the members, and the GCC actually meets at the summit level twice a year, and the ministerial level is quarterly. We are in the process of creating an economic union and have plans for a common currency, which is supposed to be on board in the year 2010. So we are moving ahead with things within the GCC.
And there are actually 2 bilateral free trade agreements between the U.S. and members of the GCC currently, at Oman and Bahrain. Is there much discussion about how those bilateral agreements affect those plans for sort of an economic convergence within the GCC?
There hasn't been much discussion on it, but I've actually been speaking to the ambassador of Oman in the United States to see how we can work together and get it out into the Gulf, because it's very important. It's just Bahrain and Oman that has the FTA, and Oman has just signed it in January, so they're pretty new. So if we can work together, and 2 forces are better than being separate. So I think it would be a good idea to work together on this.
But was there any discussion about whether or not the bilateral agreements in any way impacted the plans for the GCC?
There was nothing discussed in that way, no.
Okay, well, that's good. And so what kinds of things does the GCC involve itself with? I mean, what kinds of issues would Bahrain be discussing within the context of the Gulf Cooperation Council?
Oh, it's basically, with the region we have, again, the most discussed item would be Iran, and how we can get Iran to be a part of our region. In September, actually, the foreign minister was at the United Nations General Assembly, and he made a very important point whereby he said that all the Arab countries, including Turkey, Israel, and Iran, should sit around a table and should be able to discuss things that, because we're all one, at the end of the day, we're all one region. So they should be able to sit around the table and discuss issues pertaining to the region. And we are looking for ways to actually implement this initiative. We've been speaking to various people in various governmental levels, and we are actually trying to see what's the best way of actually implementing it. So I think it's very important that the GCC and all the Arab countries get involved in this dialogue. And
there's been some concern, I think, in some quarters in the region about an American rapprochement with Iran, and is that a zero-sum game? And the closer the U.S. might get to Tehran, does it impact relations with the Arab countries of the region? Is there any sense of that in Bahrain?
It won't impact relations as long as the Americans have the discussions with the Arabs as well. We are in the region, so we have to be involved in those discussions, in the dialogue. it's great that the United States is actually having the dialogue with Iran, but we as the Arab countries, as the ones who are the closest to Iran, need to be aware of what's going on.
So, what are some of the concerns from the perspective of the Arab Gulf countries as far as Iran's intentions in the Gulf these days?
Well, our biggest worry is that Iran wants to control the region, and that is a very scary situation to be in. So it's felt by all the especially the Gulf states, not the Arab, but especially the Gulf states. So we are looking for the Americans to have the dialogue with the Iranians, but to ensure that they don't have control over the region. Every country has its own sovereignty. Every country has to stay that way.
And what would that mean? I mean, what in terms of control, what kinds of things are most pressing on the agenda?
As I said before, Iran has claims on Bahrain. It has claims on the Emirati Islands. It has Iraq. So there's lots of things that it's there in the region. It's everywhere basically, and it's a very scary position to be in. And
you bring up Iraq. What has the discussions been in Bahrain regarding sort of the ongoing situation there?
Bahrain believes that Iraq should be able to govern itself, to be a country and govern itself. Bahrain was one of the first Gulf states to actually reopen the embassy in Iraq, and that was back in October. So Bahrain is backing Iraq in its initiatives and trying to get it back to a country that it was well known for.
Well, we've got a few minutes left, and I want to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about where you see the future of Bahrain. What is the vision for where your nation should be in 10 years or 20?
Okay, Bahrain has the Vision 2030, and basically this is the sorry. Basically, it's called Economic Vision 2030, and the plan aims to further diversify Bahrain's economy based on the principles of sustainability, competitiveness, and fairness. The plan actually aspires to shift from an economy built on oil wealth to a productive, globally competitive economy, which is shaped by the government and driven by a pioneering private sector. This should be an economy that basically creates a broad middle class of Bahrainis who enjoy good living standards through increased productivity and high-wage jobs. So basically what we're trying to do is bring in investors into Bahrain and open up opportunities for the local Bahrainis to improve their living standards, to improve their ways of living, to have more job opportunities in Bahrain as well. And we're targeting companies like pharmaceutical companies, manufacturing companies, and again, as I said before, all the skills that is required for these companies to come and establish themselves in Bahrain will be provided. The Bahrainis will be trained to be able to fill the job. So you will not be relying on an expatriate community. You'll be relying on the Bahrainis themselves.
Great. Well, we've got just about 2 minutes left. I'm wondering if you could share with us what brought you to Milwaukee.
What brought me to Milwaukee? This is something that was with my predecessor, Dr. Nasser Belushi, and his relationship with Congressman Paul Ryan. Dr. Nasser was introduced to Charles Mulcahy and Russ Kaloti, and it's a relationship whereby it's a business relationship, and I'm here to talk to various people about what Bahrain is all about and to introduce Bahrain to them. And we're hoping that we can actually have a business relationship with Mr. Kaloti and Mr. Mulcahy in the very near future.
So we can perhaps look for, in addition to the relationship between the U.S. and Bahrain through the FTA, maybe some particular Wisconsin or even Milwaukee relationships with.
For sure, yeah. That's why I'm here to further our relationship.
Well, very good. Well, Ambassador Nunu, we appreciate your taking time for your busy schedule to visit with us generally in Milwaukee and here on International Focus. And we'll look forward to the further evolution of the FTA and hopefully relationships with businesses here in Milwaukee. In the meantime, to our viewers, we'll look forward to seeing you next time on International Focus.
For information about the Institute of World Affairs and its many programs, or to become a member of the Institute, call 414-229-3220 or visit us at our website,